So I graduated from business school at UCLA in 1995. And I knew I wanted to stay here on the West Coast. And I also knew I wanted to be in finance. Most of the finance jobs were back east. So I focused on Treasury in the West Coast technology environment, which ended me up at Hewlett Packard as a foreign exchange analyst in 1995. And it wasn't long after I started there, I recruited my Anderson classmate, Scott Bilter, to come join me in that group. So we worked as analysts in that group for about 3 years. I left for a while, came back to manage the group in 2003. And that's where I met Gavin O'Donoghue. And that's where, they say you learn something really well when you learn it the second time. And that's really at the point where we built what was the original version of AtlasFX between Gavin and myself. And Scott later came in to be my job share partner. So that was really the end of my foreign exchange professional career in 2006. It was 4 or 5 years later. I always knew we had something that was a pretty remarkable invention that was not being marketed. And then Gavin was working at Pfizer. He later came and approached me with an idea to commercially develop the platform that we built while we were at Hewlett Packard. That was the start of Atlas Risk Advisory. I think that was in 2010. Gavin officially quit his role at Pfizer in 2012. The version of technology that we employ to solve this Excel limitation and dimensionality is called OLAP, Online Analytical Processing. And we had a version of that was working at my first tour in the FX group at Hewlett Packard. And when I came back, that tool had been killed in favor of a giant spreadsheet. And there was one guy on our team who built this giant spreadsheet. And we were using the spreadsheet to do things that were beyond what was originally intended for Excel to do. And it became unwieldy. So many tabs, so many sheets, so many pivot tables, VLOOKUPs on pivot tables, and just, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Files can become corrupted. It's really an inappropriate technology tool to solve these large data set problems. And so I think that's where Gavin came up with the beast. And a lot of large companies have this, when they solve this problem using Excel, they have this giant spreadsheet. And we at Hewlett Packard affectionately referred to this spreadsheet as the beast. The one thing that we see in a developing program, which was absolutely happening at Hewlett Packard at the time, is they sort of have a separate program for what they call cash flow hedging and balance sheet hedging. Even though when you take a step back and look at how the transactions that are being forecasted by those two processes are actually the same, as a matter of convenience, if you really don't understand the big picture of corporate accounting, it's very easy and convenient to put those two programs into a totally separate process. And it was really, having a CFA and studying a lot of financial statements that allowed us to understand the linkages between income statement hedging and balance sheet hedging, and how the combination of those two really result in what they commonly call a cash flow hedging program, but it's more accurately described for most people as an income statement hedging program. I think we have in our organization a very high level and sound understanding of financial statement analysis and accounting, and we combine that with technology. And I think that's kind of our secret sauce. It's very hard to replicate, to get a technology person that understands financial accounting. I came back to Hewlett Packard the second time, I was largely in the beginning an observer of the process that they had developed, which was they had a separate balance sheet program from their cash flow program. They were forecasting their balance sheet on a line by line basis. And, the story is that we had one of the people that was forecasting made just a spreadsheet error, and it resulted in this huge transaction that occurred in the wrong direction, and it turned out to be a $25 million gain, thankfully, by the time it was discovered. But it was really at that point that as a team we decided, hey, look, there's a better way that we can be doing this, both from a process standpoint and a technology standpoint. And so it was a step function in improvement in terms of what was going on there at Hewlett Packard. And I knew that at the time, what we had discovered and what we had developed was valuable, but it wasn't until Gavin came to me in 2010 and said, hey, look, I just sat through a pitch from a company that's attempted to build a tool similar to what we built, but I think we can do it better.